Okay, so it's now my privilege to introduce Ben Beaton. Ben creates art about the ecology, geology and deep time history of natural systems. And following his passion to make science visible, Ben has completed over 35 artist residencies in Australia and abroad. Ben also makes short films of scientists and conservationists talking about their work and values, and he created the interactive website sciart.com.au as a means of bringing art, science and education together. In collaboration with the ANU, he's currently looking at the possibilities that virtual reality technology create to promote conservation. Today, he will be displaying a work in progress, which I'll let him tell you more about, titled Following the Leeuwin Current. The artwork features images that depict what the plants of our time will look like as fossils in millions of years from now. Please welcome to the stage, Ben Beaton. Thank you.
Well, thank you, everyone. Yes, so my interest is in creating artworks about the ecology, geology and deep time history of natural systems. And given that we're in the Extinction 6 event now, I was looking at different ways in which I could actually do that. My story starts with paintings such as this, 590 million years on a flat surface. Each panel is a different period of geological time, and the graphs show the average sea level and temperature through deep time. So you could see here, I have a fascination with deep time that spans many, many years. I was also interested in, how can I do this at a large scale? And now we're actually exploring some of those ideas. It would have taken a long time, obviously, to get back to the birth of the sun if I just kept on painting that. So I found other ways to do it. I was also looking at ammonites, trilobites and echinoderms, chronologies of appearances, and I have an interest in scientific model making. This one, for example, by a geographical timeline indexer. And now we're looking at some of the ways that we can use this to talk about conservation issues as well. The interest in ancient Chinese landscape was something that had always been with me, but I wanted to start to behave more like a field naturalist in my art. So you can see here, this is my first residency. I wanted to go to the locations that had been made famous by artists such as Norman Lindsay, Sidney Nolan, Russell Drysdale, but I didn't want to create more myths and legends about landscape. I wanted to talk about the ecology, geology, deep time history and give scientists a voice as well. This is Fowler's Gap, Hill End. You could see Russell Drysdale, Donald Friend, Margaret Ulley up in the corner there. But I wanted to go further than that, and as I explored this and I showed the artworks, I got frustrated in my exhibitions because people weren't actually learning the science that I'd had the privilege of learning through spending time with these scientists. So that's why I developed SciArt. This artwork is in the Australian Botanic Gardens now. And so with SciArt, it's a special site whereby it's bigger than myself. You can click on the details in the artwork and actually go in and learn about the different perspectives that scientists have. This is the Burke and Wills environmental expedition. We travelled from Melbourne to the Gulf. It was extremely difficult. I had to create several artworks every day. But it was through this process that I had the idea that I could create a website that would actually do this. This is Menindee Lakes, collecting the plants that Beckler collected, pressing the plants with Marley Moyer, and so continued on New Zealand, creating artworks in New Zealand, on Zealandia, and then with Australian Geographic, looking at the situation with the cane toads. So we were on the front line, the toad-proof fence, so some details from that artwork. And then Narracourt Caves and the megafauna. So I'm very interested in the stories that you've got to tell. The SciArt's there, sciart.com.au, going to the locations, making these short films and turning it into an interactive that's used in schools. I've used this with schools before as well. This was through the Brisbane Eco-Sciences Precinct. I worked with Marley Moyer here. We went to the Philippines and the Great Barrier Reef and looking at differences between the two. Modelling is of interest to me, Queensland's annual mean surface temperature anomalies. We 3D printed a model like this and had it woven in weeds by an artist, looking at evolution through deep time in different shapes with Knut Mueller, creating these kinds of models that we can now turn into interactives. And this was a calculator, how far have we travelled through the universe through deep time. I had the question and the maths was done and we figured it out, and it's now an app that you can use. So we launched the SciArt website in 2015 during National Science Week, and this was Alice Springs Desert Park. It's actually used in Alice Springs Desert Park. You can see this is on the large screen they have out there. Then went out to Uluru. I did a portrait of my father, Associate Professor Bob Beaton. And this was bringing together geology and deep time evolution, looking at ancestry through deep time, and that's now full interactive. Another point that I learned through all of these different projects that I've done is that it was said to me, you know, Indigenous culture is by its very nature scientific, because you're going out and, you know, you have to survive in these very hard landscapes. And so I was told to take this diagram that we'd created on plate tectonics over 2 billion years in 4 dimensions out to the Ananu artists, and we described it. It was drawn out in the sand, in a sand drawing. And I worked with Ben Price on this from Charles Darwin University. And, you know, the idea, the concept was there. And so we did this artwork about, you know, how do we co-relate you know, modern scientific perspectives with Indigenous scientific perspectives about landscape. And so that was a very successful collaboration. I'm interested in working more so like that in public artworks as well. After that, Leeuwin, needed a rest, draw some trees. And then I started to follow the Leeuwin current. So the drawings that you'll see over there relate to the artwork here. I take the drawings, turn them into these digital versions and create films of the different scientists and conservationists, Indigenous elders, talk about their land. So in each case, I've been following the Leeuwin current, Shark Bay, as you can see here. You can go to the website, see all of the related films on that. And so it's been a fascinating journey as I followed the Leeuwin current down, and then eventually getting to the Valley of the Giants. And then Albany really did change things. I spent time with Gondwana Link, Keith Bradbury, Steve Hopper, out to the Stirling Ranges, seeing Banksia montana. There was only 35 individuals left, and when I went back last time, because of a controlled burn that got out of control, that population has mostly been lost now. And so at that time I thought, well, I have to do more than this, and I spent some time actually looking for a partner, found ANU, and now we can build some interesting tools that could talk about ecosystems, conservation, threatened species through virtual reality, and actually look at different ways that we can get our heads around these ideas, the macrocosm of deep time and the microcosm of what we've brought about, and how can we model these systems to actually look after the environment a lot better than what we're doing. This was Carnarvon Gorge, almost at the end, and just some more, spending some time drawing, doing what I love doing. And this is the site that we've chosen with Gondwana Link for the first ecological connection sculpture. That's the Porongrups. We've got the Stirlings on the other side. So in a sense, they kind of bookend Gondwana. You know, the Porongrups have a history of that formation of Antarctica and Australia colliding together. Stirlings have that story of Australia and Antarctica breaking apart. So they bookend Gondwana, and this will be the site for our first ecological connection sculpture. And this fossil idea, you know, came out of, as I said at the beginning of all of this, as I did this huge drawing following the Leeuwin current and looking at all of these threatened species, and again and again and again, how can we communicate that we're losing species, and was there a method that I could create? And we found a method. I worked with a fantastic artist in Denmark, and we found a method by which we could take the plants, press the plants, and create something that looked analogous to fossils. They're the fossils of our time. So maybe a paleontologist, if something gets smart and evolves paleontology millions of years from now, they crack open the rocks, they see proliferation of the right angle in our time, and they also see something that might look like those fossils. So thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Ben. That's just absolutely fascinating. It's certainly opened my eyes to stuff that I know nothing about. I'm really looking forward to having a look. So the display on the far right of the room is the material that we were talking about at the end there. And of course, it's precious work, so please be careful with it. we don't really want to spill a cup of tea on them or anything like that, do we? And thank you to Ben in particular. He's travelled down from Canberra just for this purpose, so it's really greatly appreciated. And I'm a recent convert to this nexus between science and art, so thank you for bringing that into this forum that we normally wouldn't have that conversation. Now, Ben's going to be here for a while. If you'd like to talk with Ben, I'm sure he'd love to talk more. So thank you again, Ben. Really greatly appreciate it. So another round of applause, please. Alrighty, now.
I work in science communication, actually. So
Oh, really?
similar vein to
Right. And that's quite a broad area now, isn't it? It's huge. Science communication stuff.
I'm engaged with the forest science communication team, but honestly, what I'm seeing through a lot of our research in the regions is just communicating some core scientific principles and information on why not all information is equal, kind of thing. So,
Yeah, right. Interesting. The fossils get really good up the end.
Yeah, one route as you say that. Yeah,
They kind of like, I didn't have the idea of doing the fossil thing when I started here, and it sort of developed along the way. And by the end of it, I was leaving big spaces for all the fossils. And actually, there is a book up here. Look, I'll take you up. I'll show you some funny things. I actually had the idea. I thought I was going to boil the whole book. I thought that was my plan. And then when I boiled my book, I destroyed my drawing, and it was a terrible moment. Yeah, it was this one, I think. There it is. This was the first one I did, and it wrecked my drawing. And because I was planning on boiling my whole drawing.
no, that's
Yeah,
what I did.
I didn't. And then I thought, well, I'll do it in little sections instead.
it does look very interesting, though, with just the remains of the pencil left on.
Yes. Yes, so the plan is now, with proper spacing and things, this is all cluttered together a bit, to maybe have some flowing line drawings of evolutionary trees and stuff on one side and leave the other side and just have join up that way.
So
But
you said you boiled the plants in ferrous sulfate, or
that's right.
and that brings out the stain in the plant, or it dissolves the body, or
Yes, you can see the ones that weren't, which are these yellow ones.
Yes.
That's without the ferrous sulfate.
okay.
And, when being looked at by that many people, trying to remember names, the name is Jenny Wilson, who taught me all of this. And so,
How did they figure out this technique?
I don't know. But it does sort of look different, like usually you see bits of leaves or something, but I specifically wanted to do it to try to make something that looked like fossils.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess what's interesting about this, you get this sense of the place because it's not just like what it looks like, but it's what it's got that texture and the feel of the actual thing. that
Yes.
it's looking for, as well as you're saying in that connection with past futures.
And it's also informed the colour of what it's going to be, because I didn't know when I started to do this, I realised I can't keep doing this colour stuff because I don't know how these are going to come out. But with the colours, I now know that with watercolours, I'm going to make these more of these orangey kinds of colours and
so
stuff.
When you put the colour in,
That has informed that as well. And some of the colours that came out were very unexpected. Like the tassel plant.
That was beautiful.
Tassel plant
Looks like
up there, and it inspired the Valley of Giants treetop walk. It was that plant that inspired the design of the treetop walk. Yeah. This has travelled a long way. You're still holding on. Very frail, but there.
This one's got great colour in it.
And this was a powdery blue colour leaf. Yeah. It was totally unexpected, and I don't understand the chemistry
surprised.
behind that. But it is a powdered blue. You know, those kind of powdery blue leaves.
Yeah, you can different.
Yeah.
Really.
And it's this specific species just went vibrant red.
Oh, it's just so interesting. I spent so much of my life pressing plant specimens to see this different view of them. It's really.
Oh, right.
I've spent my whole working life doing plant specimens.
Oh, really?
I think you definitely succeeded in making him look like fossils.
Yeah, I got better at it as time went on, and we did more of it. So it was a huge process. I stayed with Jenny for a week, and me and her were just doing it again and again and again. Jenny Wilson.
Jenny Wilson.
There were so many people in that talk I wanted to mention. I collaborated with lots of people, and you don't have time.
Yeah.
But,
This is amazing. What kind of pencil do you use?
just whatever's there, really.
Oh my goodness.
Truly.
Yes. Do you have to sharpen it like every 3 seconds?
No.
It's amazing. You must have a really steady hand.
This is the Royal Hakea. You know that wonderful plant, the Royal Hakea? See, this is an example of what I'm talking about. Now that is a nice looking thing, but that is nothing compared to how awesome the Royal Hakea is, you know what I mean? And that's all we get in the fossil record of Royal Hakea.
Oh, there's so much motion.
Yeah, well, on the base of a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them, I tried to draw something of the coastline, like, you know, Bremer Bay, you know, and Albany. And so the bottom often has, and his Esperance. So here I stayed with a fantastic guy, very knowledgeable, called Jason Holmes, just here. and Jason pulled out a Banksia. Yeah. He had a Banksia that he had in the fire, and he said, "Look at this, mate," and he pulled it out, and you could see the Fibonacci sequence like glowing. The whole thing was black, but the little nodes were glowing. They were still holding the heat, and then just rubbed it on there, and that's how it started. And then the bird pooed on me and the drawing, and so that became part of it.
Coloured by nature.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, they were great.
It almost looks like old wallpaper. It's got such a great pattern on it.
Well, after a time, we started to get into patterning, you know, and so like as you did the longer ones, and like how would we pattern this and stuff, and double folds, and there was a real kind of arrangement thing to it over time as well.
Well, that is wonderful. I'll definitely go check out the site.
Yeah, if you've got any ideas on, stuff you want to do, just let me know.
So you're
Alright,
working
yes.
Yeah, sort of.
kind of maybe in between two.
Yeah, between the travelling and that. And
Yes.
I'm interested in making SciArt pages on more places and making more interactives. One of the things that I wish I had mentioned in the talk, which I didn't, was when we took it to a school. I went with an astronomer, and we looked at the geology of the Uluru region, and we were able to connect the rock with when light had left certain galaxies, when the formation of the rock, and we had the kids actually do an artwork based on that, and then we turned it into an interactive, and that's on SciArt. So I'd like to see this used in more schools, and so kids get this broader kind of awareness of field naturalist type approaches to, and study of ecosystems, and what are scientists' perspectives on that. And that's why the interactive part of SciArt, I think, is valuable.
Leading people into it from a different way.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Phil from Coast Care.
Really cool. Interesting change from the normal, talks we have. So, yeah, thanks.
Oh, good.
I'll let you go and have fun for a week.
Yeah, I'll do that. It's good to meet you.
There's a contact sort of available through your website, I guess.
Fur? I'm not sure. I think I took it off because people were sending me nonsense.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah, that's just...